There are few artists or philosophers more influential and inspiring than Thelonious Harmon Edward Ounceler, or as most people know him, the Ounceler. Born in Warsaw, Poland in 1948, at the ripe age of 15, Thelonious Ounceler had spent most of his childhood with his wealthy family, where he received a comprehensive education and was well versed in the ways of aristocracy. Early on, he gravitated towards the field of science, and would soon get a master's in physics and a degree in measurement. After graduating, Thelonious worked with special laboratories where he discovered that he had a natural ability to calculate the exact weight of something just by holding it. But there was a catch. For some odd reason, he could only weigh in ounces. For the labs he worked with, this would soon become a valuable ability, especially during the Great Scale Shortage of 1966. Many times the labs would have him weigh substances that were quite dangerous when applied to bare human skin, such as radium, but the Ounceler insisted, "If I cannot weigh materials for my fellow man in times of great need, then what earthly use am I?" One of his partners responded, "You could just wear gloves at least. Why do you insist on using just your hand?" The Ounceler, insulted by this remark, eventually left his job a week later.
I myself had the injudicious privilege to work alongside Mr. Ounceler. The weight that his abilities had on the study of imperial units can only be described as infatuatory. His all-encompassing devotion to the ounce was strange, but it's clear from his academic papers, Conditioned Ounces, an in-depth analysis into the psychological effects of repeated exposure to weight units, The Weight of Nations, a study of the economic climate of the United Kingdom following their use of the scornful pound as a central currency. Mr. Ounceler can only be described as a visionary.
Despite his privileged upbringing, the Ounceler soon became especially interested in the ways of the Arctic monks after his disagreements in the realm of science, and at the age of 28, moved to the South Pole and abandoned every belonging he had, except for his clothes, half a scale, and a broken VHS tape. This period of the Ounceler's life is not very well documented, but later the Ounceler would describe his experience in great detail in a book titled There and Back Again, and in the spirit of Diogenes, preached the virtues of letting go of the material world and connecting with the spiritual enlightenment of the imperial system. The book was a commercial and critical success. John Berger once wrote, "The emotional weight of this book is unprecedented in a society so infatuated with pounds." Tolkien said, "This book actually inspired The Lord of the Rings." George Orwell remarked, "This book could stop any dystopian government in its tracks." C.S. Lewis flabigurated, "This book is literally better than Christianity." Amazon users gave even more praise. "I was going to kill myself before I read this book. This book helped me through my first pregnancy, and because of it, I have given birth to a beautiful child. I am a 38-year-old male." There and Back Again sold over 3 copies. With this newfound success, the Ounceler began his new and exciting career, and he became more experimental as his work moved into the realm of art. A series of paintings titled The Weight of Memory were shown at an exhibition. The stark, deeply unsettling compositions shocked the world. This is when the Ounceler really started to embrace his new identity. He often wore a green Brioni men's striped 2-piece suit with Kenmore wingtip Oxford dress shoes and a stylish green and purple vintage curved brim top hat, with of course a solid parakeet striped black tie to put it all together. Not only was he an artistic and literary icon, he was also a fashion icon. "My art will eclipse the world. It will bind the sinners of hell and saints of heaven with universal truth. God is the artist of our world and I am the critic, analyzing and revealing its meaning with more insight and understanding than the creator." After 2 years of astounding sales, the Ounceler would begin to write his second book, A Dream of Imagination. After its release to eager readers, something dawned on the Ounceler that told him something was very wrong. A Dream of Imagination told the story of a person who tried to dream of imagination, but his dreams often don't have the imagination to fulfill his dreams. While some praised it for its experimental prose, it was mostly panned by critics. John Berger wrote, "Although it has all its bells and whistles, A Dream of Imagination simply does not have the same emotional weight as his previous works." Tolkien said, "A dream of imagination is like butter spread across too much bread." George Orwell remarked, "Big Brother has definitely gotten hold of this author's mind." C.S. Lewis flabigurated, "I definitely have stomach ulcers." The sales also decreased dramatically. The Ounceler, now short on cash and criticized heavily, fell into a deep depression. Fewer works were produced during this time, and he grew to have an affinity for drugs and alcohol. Not for consuming them, mind you, but for weighing them. He would weigh everything. At first he would just weigh weed, but then it was acid, LSD. But even that wasn't heavy enough. Eventually he started to weigh the hard stuff. Cocaine, meth, heroin. One day I walked in on him, collapsed on the floor with a handful of coke. He whispered to me, 2.52 ounces, and then fell unconscious. I rushed him to the hospital. Apparently several toxins in his body were found, caused from exposure to radium. I have no idea how that could have ever happened. Eventually the Ounceler was sent to rehab, and after 6 long months he was ready for the real world again. After this he would write his 3rd novel, I Have No Scale, and I Must Weigh. The book was slow to success, but eventually its sales improved. Critics for the most part praised the new nihilistic, darker take. John Berger wrote, "Yeah, it's pretty good, I guess." Tolkien said,
Rings.
George Orwell remarked, "I am literally dead." C.S. Lewis flabigurated, "Please donate to my Patreon." Eventually, the Ounceler bought a home in Colorado where he spent most of the time painting, working on side projects, and of course, weighing safer substances. When you look at the Ounceler's work as a whole, you get this immense sense that this is a complicated soul. Mr. Ounceler's powers of weight calculation have given him a very unique perspective on the world that is nothing short of genius. The books and artwork are related to theme, and how it's presented in universal context. They explore memory, memoria, memento mori, memory, memetics, mobamba, meters, mum, menstrual, mether, morm, and even the nature of sanity. His works have given great insight into the world through his 3 famous protagonists, Hector the sea urchin, Sickadge the dog, and Samwise Gamgee. Each share similar characteristics but are separated by unique traits, such as Hector's affinity for spelunking, Sickadge's very compressible body, and Samwise's knowledge of nuclear physics. With this great repertoire of characters, the Ounceler brings forth great and bountiful Burmajum, which is Greek for revealing the truth. His stories and his art complement each other in this way, and I can say confidently that this makes the Ounceler one of the greatest philosophers and Burmajums in the world. The Ounceler still lives with his broken VHS tape in Colorado, where he writes and paints to this day. If anyone who lives near that area can send me some feet pics from him, for enlightenment reasons of course, that would be great. And with that, I bid thee farewell.